Hi, this is Aurora from the Educating All Learners Alliance, and today we're speaking to Deb Hanmer from Breakthrough Leadership Consulting. Deb is the founder and CEO of Breakthrough Leadership Consulting, a firm that partners with public serving institutions, education systems, and nonprofits to build the internal strategy and capacity they need to deliver on their missions. She's also been a mentor for our EALA New Champions for many years, guiding, coaching, and mentoring our incredible cohorts. Welcome to the podcast, Deb. It's so great to have you here today.
Thanks, Aurora. I'm excited to be here.
So let's dive right in. You've been a mentor with the New Champions for at least 3 cycles now. But going back a little bit to sort of your origin story, what originally brought you to this sort of mission-driven work? What inspired you to launch Breakthrough Leadership Consulting?
Yeah, great question. So I really would have to say my parents and my faith really started me out in that idea of service and doing important work with those who are sort of looking to serve the public good. I think I really had that model growing up, watching my parents volunteer in different organizations at our church, and sort of just seeing that really established a model for me as I started off into college and into my own career, kind of joining those organizations that had that mission focus. Like that really attracted me, even though there were some other opportunities that might have helped with things like student loans, right? But Breakthrough was really sort of forged out of that idea that those who serve the public should have the support that they need to do their jobs in excellent ways, and that's the kind of spirit behind our work.
Yeah, I love that service mindset, right? Giving back, and a lot of times doing good work. There's so much infrastructure, there's so much like capacity that has to come with that. That's not always. Sometimes people come to the work and there are sometimes some gaps, right, that need to be
Yep.
filled in terms of the skills that it takes to run a company. So you've had a bird's eye view of the landscape, because you've mentored so many different emerging leaders, both through the EALA New Champions and your work at Breakthrough. Over the last few years, what are some of the biggest themes or common trends that you've seen bubbling up? I know it's not an easy time right now in education or leadership, but yeah, can you touch on some of the any common themes, common trends that's come to the forefront?
Yeah, I think what the same things that excite me about working with mission-driven organizations and individuals is that their heart brings them to the work, their passion, their desire to see these good things happen. But Aurora, as you point out, sometimes those systems, those structures just aren't in place in the organizations, and those can really impact that ability to sort of deliver to the constituents, to the citizens that folks are looking to serve. I think in that similar vein, when organizations have just fewer resources, a lot of times, especially in this really competitive grant and funding landscape, they organizations can get outpaced for grant funding, right? Places that have development directors and folks who can do grant writing versus an organization where it's just that passionate leader who's doing, like, a lot of the work directly, sort of managing the board and writing the grant. I think that continues to be a theme, and then we've just seen it, like, just have sort of like a bigger impact right now with the competitive landscape.
You touched on it with the idea of, there's the one passionate leader doing everything versus a team that's more fully built out.
Yeah.
What are when you look at the emerging leaders, I mean, and I'm especially thinking about the New Champions. You just wrapped up the 2025 class of New Champions, right? But thinking about those emerging leaders, talking a little bit more about scale, right? What are some of the other challenges that you see
Yeah.
as they try to scale, as they try to grow and increase their impact? What are some of the things that what are some of the roadblocks that you've seen?
I think one is connected to sort of that last comment
Yeah.
I made about the one person doing so many things. So, one, I think, noticeable gap, especially with a lot of smaller and growing nonprofits, is that idea of having like a strategic vision, maybe even embedded into a strategic plan. And that can get real buzzwordy, like, we're doing strategic planning. But when I say it, it's really that opportunity for leaders to sort of step back out of the day-to-day reality and, like with, other sort of allies in the organization, whether that's board members, whether that's key staff members, to really stop and think about like what that mission is and how we see it playing out in concrete ways over, say, a concrete period of time, right? The next 3 years. But you have to sort of step away from the work to really be able to invest in it and get in front of it. And that, I think, continues to be a theme across leaders who are trying to grow. They're so busy in the rat race and the whirlwind of the day to day. Just stepping back and having that longer term vision is something that I would, encourage any nonprofit leader to really go after.
Yeah. Can you give us some practical tips, or let me put it this way? For leaders out there that are listening who are running small nonprofits or school programs, it's they've got to feel completely overwhelmed. I mean, I know that it's there's so much to do. So what's some practical advice or some real world tips or tools that you would find yourself giving somebody in that
Yes.
situation?
I think whether you're a school leader, which is my background, whether you're a nonprofit leader, sort of in that public sector, the most practical piece of advice that I could provide, or the thing you wanna have in front of you, is data. You wanna have data in front of you. And that, not data to prep for, like, the grant, right? Sometimes that's the time where leaders start collecting sort of data from around the organization or the school. You wanna actually operate with data and figuring out a very, like, a clear and clean way to sort of track that data. I always suggest, before we go to the big programs, to just start with a spreadsheet, right? Start with a spreadsheet. These are the 5 key data points that we're tracking. This says, like the number of families we're serving or the reading growth we wanna make with this population of students. Something that can be very basic. Some organizations I know have different requirements as it relates to data, but actually using whatever that data system is, whether you have to create it from scratch or you have kind of like a bigger one already put on top of you, learning how to integrate that into meetings. So adding kind of like some kind of data dive or data analysis into sort of regular team meetings, supervision meetings, whatever the case may be, just to get used to kind of like that usage and analyzing and understanding it. I think just that sort of act or activity could be a real game changer for organizations.
That's fantastic. It's the idea of not waiting until the end or waiting until
Yes.
it's time to collect the information. It's,
Yes.
keeping that sort of, keeping an eye on that data and to keep
Yes.
things running so that you're not rushing to meet a deadline. It's built into how you do the work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we're at the end of our questions today. So before you go, how can folks stay involved or learn more about you and your work? What's the best way for folks to kind of continue learning about you and Breakthrough after listening to the podcast today?
Absolutely. And thanks for that. You can definitely always find me on LinkedIn. I always like to put out a lot of information and ways to connect. And then definitely visit our website. We just newly designed it at bktlead.com. So we can keep in touch there. There's ways to sign up for newsletters and all sorts of other ways to engage.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Deb. It's been great talking with you today. Always a pleasure when our paths cross and we get to have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for us today, folks. Thank you to Deb Hanmer. And to learn more, check out their website at bktlead.com. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and follow us on social media. I'm Aurora from EALA, and this was The Deep Dive with Deb Hanmer.